Isabella Romano counted the money in the register for the third time, her hands shaking. She was short. Again. $47 missing from her register at the end of her shift. That was the second time this week. Her manager, Mr. Patterson, was going to fire her. She knew it. She could barely afford rent as it was. And losing this job would mean losing everything. Isabella worked at Romano's Grocery, a small family-owned store in the Bronx that had been serving the neighborhood for 40 years. She'd worked there for 3 years, ever since her mother got sick and Isabella had to drop out of college to pay medical bills. Now her mother was gone, the medical debt remained, and Isabella was 24 years old with no degree, no prospects, and a register that kept coming up short because she was so exhausted she could barely count straight anymore. She worked 2 jobs, mornings at the grocery store, evenings cleaning office buildings. She slept maybe 4 hours a night, and still, it wasn't enough. "Isabella!" Mr. Patterson's voice made her jump. "My office, now." Isabella followed him with a sinking feeling in her stomach. This was it. She was about to lose the better of her 2 jobs. Mr. Patterson sat behind his cluttered desk and pulled out a folder. "Your register has been short 3 times in the past 2 weeks. That's nearly $100 in losses. I know, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to be more careful. I can't keep covering these shortages, Isabella. The store is barely breaking, even as it is. I have to let you go." Isabella felt tears burning her eyes. "Please, Mr. Patterson, I need this job. I'll pay back the money. I'll take it out of my paycheck." "You're already making minimum wage. I can't dock your pay below that." "I'm sorry, Isabella. You're a good kid, but I can't afford to keep losing money." Isabella left the office in a daze. She had 2 weeks left. 2 weeks to find another job before her rent was due, and she had no way to pay it. She finished her shift on autopilot, barely aware of the customers she was helping, until one customer made her pay attention. He was maybe 45, with salt and pepper hair and an expensive suit that looked completely out of place in their small neighborhood grocery store. He moved with the kind of quiet confidence that suggested he was used to people getting out of his way. 2 other men in suits flanked him, not shopping, just watching. Bodyguards, Isabella realized. The man in the expensive suit selected items carefully. Fresh pasta, San Marzano tomatoes, fresh basil, imported olive oil. He knew what he was looking for, moving through the aisles with purpose. When he came to Isabella's register, he set down his items without speaking. Isabella rang them up, her hands still shaking from the conversation with Mr. Patterson. "That'll be $47.35, she said. The man handed her a $100 bill. Isabella opened her register to make change. She counted out the bills, a 50 and 2 ones, plus 65 cents in coins. She handed it to him. "Here's your change, sir." The man looked at the money in his hand. Then he looked at Isabella with sharp, dark eyes that seemed to see right through her. "This is $52.65, he said quietly. Isabella's stomach dropped. She looked at the register receipt. $47.35. She'd given him change for $100. That should be $52.65. But she'd given him a 50 and 2 ones. That was only $52. She'd shorted him 65 cents. No, wait. She'd given him the coins. So that was correct. Isabella's exhausted brain couldn't make sense of the numbers. She stared at the money, at the receipt, trying to figure out where she'd made the mistake. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'll fix it right now." "You gave me too much," the man said. "I should get $52.65 back. You gave me $52.65. That's correct." Isabella blinked. "But I thought—" "You did it right," he said, his voice gentler. "Now? But you look terrified, like you'd made a mistake. Why?" Isabella felt tears threatening again. "I've been making mistakes all week, getting the change wrong. My register keeps coming up short. I'm so tired, and I can't afford to lose this job. But I'm going to because I keep messing up." The man studied her carefully. "How many jobs do you work?" The question surprised her. 2. "Why? How much sleep do you get?" "I don't see how that's your business." "Humor me." 4 hours, maybe 5 on good nights." The man was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Isabella didn't expect. "Go take your break. Right now." "What?" "You're exhausted. You need a break. Go sit down for 15 minutes. "I can't just leave my register." The man looked past her to Mr. Patterson, who was watching the interaction from his office. "She's taking a break. 15 minutes. Put someone else on the register." Mr. Patterson started to protest, then seemed to recognize the man. His face went pale. "Oh, Of course, Mr. Caruso. Right away. Isabella, take your break. Isabella looked between the customer and her manager, confused, but Mr. Patterson's expression made it clear this wasn't a request. She stepped away from the register. Another clerk took her place. The man, Mr. Caruso, gestured to the small seating area near the front of the store where employees took breaks. Sit. Isabella sat. Mr. Caruso sat across from her. What's your name? He asked. Isabella Romano. Romano, like the store. Coincidence. No relation to the family that owns it. Mr. Caruso nodded. Tell me why you're working 2 jobs, Isabella Romano. I don't understand why you care. Because you gave me correct change while thinking you'd made a mistake, which tells me you're honest even when you're exhausted. That's rare. Now tell me why you're working yourself to death. Isabella didn't know why she answered. Maybe because she was too tired to lie. Maybe because the stranger's direct questions demanded honest answers. My mother got cancer 2 years ago. I dropped out of college to take care of her and pay for treatment. She died 6 months ago, but the medical debt didn't. I work 2 jobs to pay it off, but it's like drowning in quicksand. The more I work, the more exhausted I get, the more mistakes I make, and now I'm losing this job because I can't count change correctly anymore. Mr. Caruso listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. How much debt? He asked. $87,000. And you're paying it off on minimum wage from 2 jobs? I don't have other options. I didn't finish college, so I can't get better work, and I can't go back to school because I'm working all the time. Mr. Caruso pulled out his phone and made a call. Vincent, I need you to do something for me. He listened for a moment. There's a young woman named Isabella Romano. She has medical debt of approximately $87,000. I want it. Paid off by tomorrow morning, all of it. Isabella's heart stopped. What? No, I can't let you. Mr. Caruso held up a hand. I'm not giving you charity. I'm making an investment. In what? In you, but we'll get to that. He ended the call and looked at Isabella. The debt will be gone by tomorrow. You'll receive documentation showing it's been paid in full. Why would you do this? You don't even know me. I know enough. You're honest, hardworking, and you haven't let terrible circumstances make you bitter or dishonest. That's worth investing in. Isabella felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. What do you want from me? I want you to quit both your jobs. What? You can't think straight when you're this exhausted. You can't build a future when you're just surviving. Quit both jobs. Use the next month to rest, to figure out what you actually want to do with your life. I can't afford to quit. I have rent. I'll cover your expenses for 3 months, rent, food, utilities, everything. In exchange, I want you to take that time seriously. Rest. Think about what you want. And when you're ready, come work for me. Doing what? We'll figure that out based on what you want to do. But Isabella, I don't make offers like this lightly. I see potential in you. Don't waste it. Isabella stared at this stranger who was offering to change her life. Who are you? My name is Dominic Caruso. I own several businesses in New York. Some people say I have connections to organized crime. Some of those people are right, some are wrong. What matters is that I operate by a code. Loyalty, respect, taking care of people who work for me. If you work for me, you'll be protected, well paid, and treated fairly. Why me? Because you gave me correct change and thought you'd made a mistake. Because you're working yourself to death to pay off debt that isn't even yours. It's from your mother's medical care. Because you're honest in a world where most people would have pocketed that 65 cents and blamed the shortage on a register error. He stood. Think about my offer. Here's my card. When you're ready to talk, call me. He handed her a simple business card with a name and phone number. Then he picked up his groceries and left. Isabella sat in the break area, holding the card, wondering if she'd just imagined the entire conversation. What would you have done? Would you have trusted a powerful stranger's offer, or would you have been too suspicious to accept help? That night, Isabella couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Dominic Caruso's offer. It sounded too good to be true. Nobody just paid off $87,000 in debt for a stranger. Nobody offered to cover 3 months of expenses for someone they'd just met, unless they wanted something in return. Something illegal, probably. But he'd seemed genuine, and the way Mr. Patterson had reacted to him suggested Dominic was someone powerful, someone whose requests weren't ignored. At 3 a.m., Isabella's phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Is this Isabella Romano? A woman's voice, professional. Yes? My name is Angela Torres. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Caruso. He asked me to inform you that your mother's medical debt has been paid in full. You'll receive confirmation from the hospital and collection agencies within 24 hours. Isabella sat up in bed. He really did it? Mr. Caruso keeps his word. He also asked me to discuss living arrangements. Your current lease ends in 6 weeks, correct? How do you know that? Mr. Caruso does his research. He's arranged for you to move into a property he owns. A 1-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood, rent-free for 3 months. After that, rent will be $800 per month, which is below market rate. Isabella's current rent was $1,400 for a studio in a building with broken locks and heat that didn't work half the time. Why is he doing this? Isabella asked. Because he sees potential in you, and because he believes in helping people who deserve help. Do you accept his offer? Isabella thought about her 2 jobs, about being so tired she couldn't count change correctly, about medical debt that would take her 10 years to pay off on minimum wage. Yes, she said, I accept. Good. Mr. Caruso would like to meet with you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Can you make that work? I'm supposed to work. Mr. Caruso has already spoken to your employers. You have tomorrow off. I'll text you the address. After hanging up, Isabella lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her life had just changed completely in the span of 12 hours, and she had no idea if she'd made the best decision of her life or the worst. The next afternoon, Isabella took the subway to an address in Manhattan. The building was elegant, not ostentatious, but clearly expensive. The lobby had marble floors and a doorman who greeted her by name. Miss Romano, Mr. Caruso is expecting you, 10th floor. Isabella took the elevator up, her heart pounding. The doors opened to a reception area where Angela Torres, a professional woman in her 40s, greeted her warmly. Isabella, thank you for coming. Mr. Caruso is finishing a call. He'll be with you shortly. 5 minutes later, Angela led Isabella into an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dominic Caruso stood when she entered. Isabella, please sit. Isabella sat in a comfortable chair across from his desk. I got a call last night about the debt. It's done. You'll receive confirmation today. Why did you do this? Dominic leaned back in his chair. Can I tell you a story? Okay. 20 years ago, I was running a small waste management company. I was barely making it, working 18-hour days, drowning in debt from equipment loans. One day, I made a mistake. Billed a client incorrectly, undercharged them by about $500. He paused. The client noticed. He was a successful businessman, could have easily taken advantage of the mistake. Instead, he called me, pointed out the error, and paid the correct amount. Then he asked me why I looked so exhausted. I told him the truth about the debt, the long hours, the feeling of drowning. What did he do? He paid off my business loans, all of them. Then he became my mentor, taught me how to run a business properly, introduced me to connections that helped me grow. He said he was investing in my character, not just my company. Isabella understood. And now you're doing the same for me. I'm paying forward what he did for me. That man changed my life. Without him, I'd have lost everything. Now I have the resources to help others the way he helped me. What do you want me to do? Dominic opened a folder. First, I want you to rest. You're exhausted, and exhausted people can't think clearly. Take 2 weeks off. Sleep. Eat proper meals. Remember what it feels like to be human instead of a machine working to survive. And after 2 weeks, we'll talk about what you want to do with your life. You were in college. What were you studying? Business administration. I wanted to run my own company someday. Good. That's something we can work with. But Isabella, I need to be clear about something. I come from a complicated background. My father and grandfather were involved in activities I don't involve myself in, but the reputation follows me. People make assumptions about my business dealings. Are you in the Mafia? Dominic smiled slightly. I own legitimate businesses. Waste management, commercial real estate, import/export operations. Everything is legal, but I also operate by an old world code that some people find suspicious. Loyalty matters. Respect matters. I take care of people who work for me, and I expect loyalty in return. What does that mean practically? It means if you work for me, you'll be well paid and protected. It also means you might face scrutiny from law enforcement who assume my businesses are fronts for illegal activity. It means some people will judge you for your association with me. Isabella thought about it. Is it worth it? That's for you to decide. But I'll tell you this. Everyone who works for me is treated with respect and paid fairly. I don't exploit people, I don't break my word, and I protect my people when they need it. Then yes, it's worth it. Good. Go home. Rest. Call Angela if you need anything. We'll talk again in 2 weeks. As Isabella left the office, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. 2 weeks later, Isabella looked like a different person. She'd slept. She'd eaten proper meals. She'd taken walks in the park without watching the clock anxiously. She'd remembered what it felt like to not be constantly exhausted. She met with Dominic again in his office. "You look better," he observed. "I feel human again. I didn't realize how close to breaking I was." Exhaustion clouds. Judgment. Now that you're thinking clearly, what do you want to do? Isabella had spent the past 2 weeks thinking about exactly that question. I want to finish my degree, but I also want to work, to learn from someone who knows how to run successful businesses. Is there a way to do both? Dominic nodded. I can arrange for you to work part-time in my commercial real estate office. You'll learn property management, tenant relations, financial analysis, and I'll cover your tuition to finish your degree. You can take evening classes. That's too generous. It's an investment. I'm betting that in 5 years, you'll be running one of my properties and making me money. That's not charity. That's smart business. Over the next 3 years, Isabella did exactly what Dominic had predicted. She finished her business degree while working in his real estate office. She learned property management, financial planning, and business operations. She also learned about the complicated world Dominic operated in. Yes, his businesses were legitimate, but he also had connections to people who operated outside the law. He mediated disputes between rival organizations. He provided consulting services that Isabella suspected involved more than just business advice. But she also saw him refuse deals that crossed ethical lines. She saw him fire an employee who'd been abusive to tenants. She saw him personally help an elderly couple being evicted from one of his properties. He renegotiated their lease and covered 2 months of back rent rather than throwing them out. Dominic operated by a code, and that code had strict boundaries. 3 years after that day in the grocery store, Dominic called Isabella into his office. I have a proposition for you. Okay. Romano's grocery is closing. Mr. Patterson can't afford to keep it open anymore. The neighborhood is losing its only grocery store. Isabella felt sad. She'd worked there for years. That's terrible. I'm buying the building, and I want you to run it. Isabella blinked. What? Not as a grocery store, as something better, a community market, fresh produce, prepared foods, a cafe area. Make it a place that serves the neighborhood properly. You'll own 40% of the business, I'll own 60% and provide the capital for renovations and operations. Why would you give me ownership? Because you've proven yourself over the past 3 years. You're smart, hardworking, and you understand that community. You can make this work, but more importantly, you've earned the opportunity. Isabella felt tears forming. You're giving me a business. I'm making you a partner. There's a difference. You'll work harder than you've ever worked. You'll be responsible for employees, for profit and loss, for success or failure. This isn't a gift. It's an opportunity that comes with enormous responsibility. I accept. Good. Then let's build something the neighborhood deserves. Over the next 6 months, Isabella transformed Romano's Grocery into Romano's Market, a modern community space that honored the old store's legacy while serving the neighborhood's needs better. She hired local people who needed jobs. She sourced produce from local farmers. She created a prepared foods section with affordable, healthy meals for families who didn't have time to cook. And she reserved a corner of the store for a small cafe where neighbors could gather. The market opened to huge community support. People who'd shopped at the old grocery store for decades came to see what Isabella had built, and they were impressed. Dominic came to the opening, dressed casually for once, blending in with the neighborhood crowd. Your mother would be proud, he said, watching Isabella work the crowd. I wish she could see this. She can, and she knows you did this yourself. Yes, I provided capital, but you did the work. You built this. 1 year after the market opened, Isabella was managing a successful business, employing 15 people, and serving a neighborhood that had lost hope when the old grocery store closed. But the biggest moment came when a young woman approached her one evening after closing. Are you the owner? The woman asked nervously. Yes, I'm Isabella. I'm Maria. I work at the bodega 3 blocks from here. I heard you started in grocery stores too, before you became successful. That's right. I want to do what you did. I want to own my own business someday. But I don't have money for school, and I'm working all the time just to survive. I don't know how to break out of this cycle. Isabella looked at this young woman who reminded her so much of herself 5 years ago, exhausted, desperate, but still dreaming. Tell me your story, Isabella said, and don't leave anything out. Maria told her about working 2 jobs, about supporting her younger siblings after their parents died, about dreams of opening a small restaurant. someday, but having no idea how to make it happen. When she finished, Isabella pulled out her phone and called Dominic. "I found someone," Isabella said when he answered. "Someone who needs what you gave me. Tell me about her." Isabella explained Maria's situation, the 2 jobs, the family responsibilities, the dreams deferred by necessity. "Bring her by the office tomorrow," Dominic said. "Let's see if we can help." After Isabella hung up, Maria looked confused. Who was that? "Someone who changed my life 5 years ago. He paid off my debt, gave me an opportunity, and taught me how to turn struggle into success. Now he might do the same for you." "Why would he help me?" "Because someone helped him once, and he's been paying it forward ever since. And because I told him you deserve a chance." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand. You don't even know me." "I know enough. You're working yourself to death for your family. You're still dreaming, despite terrible circumstances. You had the courage to ask for help instead of just accepting your situation. That's what matters." The next day, Isabella brought Maria to meet Dominic. She watched as he had the same conversation with Maria that he'd had with Isabella 5 years ago, asking about her dreams, her circumstances, her willingness to work hard if given an opportunity. By the end of the meeting, Maria's student loans were paid off, and she had a part-time job in Isabella's market while attending culinary school in the evenings. "How do I repay this?" Maria asked, overwhelmed. "You don't," Isabella said. "You pay it forward. Someday, when you're successful, you find someone else who's drowning and you throw them a rope. That's how this works." 5 years after Isabella gave Dominic the wrong change, she owned 3 successful community markets across the Bronx. She employed over 50 people. She'd been featured in business magazines as an example of community-focused entrepreneurship. Dominic was still her partner and mentor. But more than that, he'd become family. The one who'd seen potential when she was too exhausted to see it herself. One afternoon, Isabella was at her original market when an elderly woman approached her. "Are you Isabella Romano?" the woman asked. "Yes." "I'm Catherine Caruso, Dominic's mother." Isabella's eyes widened. Dominic rarely spoke about his family. "It's wonderful to meet you. I wanted to meet the young woman my son talks about constantly. He says you remind him of me, someone who works hard, treats people fairly, and never forgets where you came from." "That's very kind of him to say." Catherine looked around the market. "This is beautiful. You've built something that serves the community with respect. That's rare. Your son taught me how." "No, my dear. My son gave you resources. You're the one who turned them into something meaningful." Catherine took Isabella's hand. "Dominic told me about the day you met, about the change you gave him, and how you thought you'd made a mistake when you hadn't. I was so exhausted I couldn't think straight. But you were still honest. That's what caught his attention. In his line of work, honesty is rare and valuable." Isabella understood what Catherine was carefully not saying, that Dominic's business dealings existed in complicated spaces between legal and less legal, but that his core values remained solid. "He changed my life," Isabella said simply. "And you reminded him why his life matters. He could have just made money, built power, collected influence. Instead, he's built a legacy of helping people. You're a part of that legacy now." After Catherine left, Isabella thought about legacies and choices and the strange paths life could take. 5 years ago, she'd been a grocery store clerk so tired she couldn't count change correctly. Now she was a successful businesswoman helping others achieve their dreams, all because she'd given a powerful stranger correct change, and he'd seen past her exhaustion to the potential underneath. That evening, Isabella called Dominic. "Your mother came to see me today." "I know. She told me she wanted to meet you." "What did you think?" "She's wonderful. And she said something that made me think." "What's that?" "She said I reminded you why your life matters." "Is that true?" Dominic was quiet for a moment. "When you have power and money, it's easy to forget that the point isn't accumulation. It's what you do with those resources. You reminded me that helping people succeed is more satisfying than just making money. You could have helped me and moved on. Why did you stay involved?" "Because watching you succeed has been one of the most satisfying experiences of my life. Better than any business deal, any property acquisition, any amount of profit. Seeing you go from exhausted and broken to confident and successful. That matters." Isabella felt tears in her eyes. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing potential when I couldn't. For giving me a chance when I didn't deserve it." "You did deserve it. You just didn't know it yet." After hanging up, Isabella looked around her market. Customers shopping, employees working, a community space thriving. She thought about Maria, now running her own small cafe, about the other young people Isabella had mentored, about the cycle of kindness that kept spreading. All because 5 years ago, a Mafia boss had come into a grocery store and an exhausted clerk had given him correct change. Sometimes the smallest moments create the biggest ripples. Sometimes giving someone the right change means changing their entire life. And sometimes the most powerful people are the ones who use their power to lift others up instead of keeping them down. 10 years after that day in the grocery store, Isabella stood in a business conference giving a keynote speech about community-focused entrepreneurship. 10 years ago, she told the audience, I was working 2 jobs, drowning in medical debt, and so exhausted I couldn't perform basic math. I thought I'd made a mistake giving a customer change. I hadn't. But that customer saw past my error to the person underneath. He saw someone honest, hardworking, and deserving of an opportunity. She paused. That customer paid off my debt, covered my living expenses, and helped me build a business. Today, I own 5 community markets, employ over 100 people, and have helped mentor dozens of young entrepreneurs. None of that would have happened without someone choosing to help when they didn't have to. In the back of the room, Dominic Caruso stood watching, pride evident on his face. After the speech, a young man approached Isabella nervously. Ms. Romano, I'm Carlos. I work 3 jobs to support my family. I heard your story, and I was wondering, is there any way someone like me could get the kind of help you got? Isabella smiled and pulled out her phone. Let me introduce you to someone. His name is Dominic Caruso. He's the man who changed my life, and he's still looking for people worth investing in. She called Dominic over. This is Carlos. I think he's someone you should talk to. Dominic shook Carlos's hand. Tell me your story, he said, and don't leave anything out. As Isabella watched Dominic begin the same conversation he'd had with her 10 years ago, she felt the cycle continuing, the kindness spreading, the opportunities multiplying. All because a powerful man had chosen to help instead of ignore. All because a tired clerk had been honest even when she thought she'd made a mistake. All because sometimes the wrong change is actually exactly right. Looking back, would you have had the courage to accept help from a powerful stranger? Would you have trusted that the opportunity was real and not too good to be true?